The Wijk tournament in Netherlands, also known as the Wimbledon of Chess, just finished, and the winner was Nordiberk Abdusattorov from Uzbekistan. The 21-year-old grandmaster managed to outplay his opponents and win with a convincing score of 9 out of 13. Let's have a look at his games and see how did he do it. His first win came against Pragnananda, Indian grandmaster, who is going to be playing on the candidates tournament for a shot to challenge for the world title against his countrymate Gukesh. Nordiberk chose the Queen's Gambit for this game, and Prague played the Slav defense. So far, players are developing their pieces, nothing unusual. Nordiberk is trying to seize the initiative, he's delaying his castle, he takes the bishop on h7, bring his queen out to target the b7 pawn. Prague said come and get me because he wants to counterplay on the b file, right? So obviously he didn't do that, he castled his king to safety, and then he starts maneuvering and outplaying Prague. So far everything normal. This push on a6 is a good one to damage the structure, the pawn structure on the queen side. Prague pushes b5, doesn't trade, but now this pawn is a weakness. So he trades queens and occupies the file with his rook, aiming to take advantage of this backwards pawn. Black defends, and then b3 restricts this knight from jumping into this outpost. Now this knight has this outpost, but white's knight is covering e4. So black decides to push. Probably black is trying to target the a6 pawn. So far it's being defended by the rook. And now this knight will do a great blockade here on this outpost. Black tries to push to get rid of the blockade. White takes. Black jumps in, but now you kind of start looking for tactics here on this position, because you know, if this knight moves, now this knight defends the rook, but the few exchanges that might not be the case. Position is quite sharp, computer still thinks it's quite equal. White takes, black takes with the rook, then the rook trade, then the knight jumps in, targets the b4 pawn now, yeah, the rook will soon join. But white still has some back rank issues, so probably white will open some space for the king. Black tries to defend the pawn, and now there you go. White is opening the position for the king to escape any back rank issues. Knight jumps in, not sure about this move, quite sharp. Probably black is saying that if you take, I take with the pawn, and these two pawns together they would march and queen. So Nordiberk doesn't fall for that and bring his king to, in the end game it's important to bring the king out. Play continues, now Nordiberk occupies the open file. It seems like black grabbed the pawn, but now this pawn is much closer to promoting, so Nordiberk goes after this. Black plays d4 in this position, computer gives it a question mark. White ignores and take the pawn, and now after the offer to exchange knights, so Nordiberk accepts. He will bring his rook to target this pawn and push his pawn forward. Computer doesn't like this move, it prefers this position for reasons that is hard to explain. Computer prefers h4 or bring the king to the center. Nordiberk plays rook a8, black brings the king. Now Prague pushes the pawn, Nordiberk pushes his pawn, and black tries to stop, because if the white rook is to leave the pawn, black would capture it. And so now Nordiberk pushes on the other side, h4. Prague blocks the position, bring his king forward, Nordiberk. Now black is asking the question, what you wanna do, because I'm gonna push my pawn promote. Nordiberk defends, they exchange the pawns, but Nordiberk still a pawn up. So this endgame, that was a mistake by black. Nordiberk takes advantage of it. And now with this extra pawn and the king way more active, Nordiberk is able to convert this position. Yes, and after 60 moves, black resigns as the rook cuts the king, so this pawn will be escorted by the king and will promote. Now let's have a look at the second game. The second win came against Grandmaster Van Nguyen, that's playing under the Czech Republic flag. Nordiberk opens with e4, e5, and we have here a betrothed defense. Nordiberk captures. Everything so far is according to the book. This is quite standard in this opening, and so far players are playing the best moves. And this is a mistake. Apparently in this position black should play 9 takes e3, getting rid of this bishop. But that's a pretty logical move, to be honest, to play c6. Now, white is a pawn up here after this exchange, right? Well, now it makes sense, right? Because with the bishop moving, we have 1, 2, 3 attackers against this knight, and only 1 and 2 defenders. So after the exchanges, white emerges a pawn up, right? So now white is a pawn up, tries to exchange everything in this position, since if you're left with 1 pawn against nothing from your opponent, your chance of winning is great. So yeah, so Nordiberk trying to trade everything, now defends the pawn, does attack 3 times. Now before kicking out the knight, he will expand on the queen side, making sure the pawns don't move. Now he does another exchange as this favors him. Now he brings the knight to exchange, and this significantly dropped his chance of winning, but still winning. The computer gives a 1.0 advantage on this position. The best move here would be to take with the queen and try to force the exchange of queens. If not, at least your queen is on way more active position, and black queen would find it difficult to find a good square for her. So Nordiberk continues with his plan to push the pawns. This again was considered a mistake by the computer. Here the computer screams for white to bring his king to f2. Because now the queen tries to jump in on these 2 pawns on the queen side. Nordiberk calmly defends, and this is a mistake by black. He should probably have exchanged this pawn. Now Nordiberk tries to bring the king forward, and for now this is a maneuver game where white will try to advance the pawns without letting the queen check too much the white king. And here Van Nguyen resigns as there's not much to be done. The queen doesn't have a way to get to the king. The king could even adventure here and try to grab the pawn via b4 and a3. So Van Nguyen resigned, and that was the second victory for Nordiberk Abdusattorov. The third win for Nordiberk was against the current world champion, Gukash, and that was a very odd one because the game was pretty much equal. Played a Rui Lopez, and the whole game was very theoretical battle, like where the players were playing the best moves. Just happened that at the end you would be shocked. Nothing special here. Nordiberk trying to attack on the king side. Gukash did a great job defending. That was a great move to get rid of this knight that jump into the position. But yet, still the computer here gives the game as equal. One plan for Gukesh could be to bring his queen here to g7 and then play rook h6 and the queen is lost. Obviously Nordiberk saw that. He gets his king out of the way, so now the queen wouldn't be pinned if that were to happen. The king hides in front of the g3 pawn. There's no easy way for black to enter the position. Gukesh tries bring his queen here, because if this rook were to move, then the queen here would be a really problem for white. Obviously Nordiberk saw that. He bring his other rook, where the rook from e2 will protect, and then this rook is free to move to h1 and put pressure on this pawn. So now Nordiberk tries to open the center. Gukesh tries to attack, to infiltrate with his rook on h2, right? But here Nordiberk just gives check, the rook protects. Then with this move, everything is equal, computer gives 0-0-0, nothing special. But then this is the shocking moment of the game. In this position, Gukesh played rook g5, big mistake, because here white will capture the pawn. There's no way to defend the rook. He just hang his rook, and Gukesh immediately resigned the game after this. That was his third win of the tournament. His next win was playing with the black pieces against against Vincent Keimer. Keimer opened with c4. Let's watch the game from the perspective of Nordiberk, since he was the champion. And they played this English opening Caro-Kann defensive system. This is not a very common line, but computer doesn't see anything special. Vincent Keimer tried to gambit this pawn, trying to bring his rook to g1 and attacking the g7 pawn from here, right? Also the knight move, this pawn becomes vulnerable. That's what he does, but here black counterattacks, because now the queen attacks this knight as well. So after this exchange, the rook takes the pawn on g7. So far the game is still balanced, no one is winning, pretty much equal. But I'll be honest with you, I would prefer to be black in this position. So the rook comes back, and Nordiberk jumps in with the queen. Now this bishop is pinned, so white will have to waste a few moves, because it will have to probably play rook d2 and castle, and then we'll be able to move the bishop. So now Keimer played f4. Nordiberk continues with his development. Queen comes to f2, and now the knight jumps in. And knight jumping just in time. Now it's forking the queen, the rook, but this knight is here to save the day. So after this trade, the queen comes out, and now it's really hard for white to play here, because the king is stuck in the center. Was not able to castle. All these queenside pawns are open up, so this is really difficult position for Keimer to hold, even though computer is not impressed. Computer still thinks the game is equal, but psychologically speaking, it's hard to believe that this game is equal. So anyway, white continues with bishop d2. Nordiberk targets the rook. The rook slides out of the way. Now Nordiberk says, really, I'm attacking you, do something. The queen protects, and the queen infiltrates again, targeting the b2 pawn. Now the white queen comes back, offering an exchange. Queen goes back to target the rook, and here Keimer played this apparent mistake. bishop a5. Computer wanted him to play queen f3. Computer wanted him to play this move. Anyway, that didn't happen. So here, after bishop a5, Nordiberk tries to open this bishop, because here this bishop would be forking, right? Here, not here. It would be forking the rook and the queen. But apparently it was a mistake. The mistake was because the rook can simply take this pawn, and you don't have that fork anymore. And if anything, if the bishop comes here, you can probably play. What is a strong move here? Would be queen b3, targeting this pawn in b7. But anyway, so Vincent blundered, and now Nordiberk played the best move, queen g1 check. Either the bishop comes back or the king moves, but this pawn here is very weak. So the king tries to defend the pawn. Now after exchanging queens, the fork is finally here, right? So White decides to give the rook for the black square bishop, and now this should be an easy conversion for Nordiberk. Who shows a very good technique and managed to convert this game without any issues there. Here Vincent Keimer resigned as the players reached the 40 move and got some extra time, and there was nothing to be done. The position was hopeless. Right, but not everything was roses for Nordiberk. He lost to the local Anish Giri, who will be playing on the candidates tournament as well. And here how the game went. Nordiberk played d4, they started an Indian game. Then Giri tried to open with this Ningzo Indian defense. This is already inaccuracy by Nordiberk. On this position, the computer wants him to play bishop d2 to protect, to go back and protect the knight. But this is very difficult to do because you don't want to bring your bishop back. But yeah, Anish didn't capitalize on that. He continued his development with knight c6, very natural move. Don't understand why the computer gives this as a mistake. Yeah, so Anish expanded on the king's side quite fast and launched this attack, and this knight here stay on the edge of the board for the majority of the game. You'll see that was really really problematic for White once his knight got in the ring of the board. Yeah, Nishigiri just squeezed this position. He played with the mastery and gave no counterplay to Nordiberk at all. Because remember here, so far, White's playing without a knight, and this rook is also not doing much. This bishop is not doing much. This bishop is completely locked out of the game by its own pawns and pieces. So really the only active piece for Nordiberk in this game was the queen. But the queen alone cannot win the game. So Anish Giri keeps bringing his pieces into the attack, develops his bishop, trades, bring his queen now, and still look at this knight. This knight is miserable, there's no escape for this knight. This square is controlled, this one is controlled, this one is controlled, this one is controlled. So the knight has no moves. But Nordiberk kept trying. Anish traded this bishop, which I found it was a little bit confusing because this bishop was not doing much, but I guess when you're winning so clearly, if you trade these pieces, you can exploit the position better. So that was a good try here by Nordiberk when he brought his queen to d1, because here His idea was probably playing knight, let's say black plays a random move here, black plays knight d6. Here white could bring his knight out, because now the queen would see the queen if were to take. This comes with a check, and then you later grab this pawn. Obviously Nordiberk didn't fall for that. After queen d1 he played h5, protecting. Now you cannot try this again because the pawn protects the queen. So here he tried desperately to open lines. Anish took the pawn, and then took another pawn, then traded queens. And here Anish calculated a great ending to this game. You will see that he sacrifices his knight, because infiltrating with his rooks and taking this pawn here is much stronger. This knight still cannot go anywhere. The king controls these squares. Nordiberk tried to defend, but in any case, in the end, Giri sacrificed the knight once again to go after the pawns. And here Nordiberk resigns. There's nothing to be done. If you capture this pawn, black will advance with the f pawn, and there's no way to stop. You make a new queen and trade the rooks. And because these pawns are so isolated, they become an easy target for the rook. And that's why Nordiberk resigned this game. Great game by Anish Giri. The next game Nordiberk won was against Matthias Blumbaum, who was a German player who will also be playing on the Candidates tournament. Nordiberk opened with c4. So far, the opening, everything is normal, just developing their pieces, nothing special about this. And here is a question by black. Why trading this bishop? Unprovoked trade, trying to double the pawns in the center of the board, but then this disrupts this knight. And now white build a strong center. This knight blocks the development of this bishop, so black will have to waste some time. Computer already gives 0.94 for this position, almost a pawn of advantage. And here they exchange the knight for the bishop. Now Nordiberk is ready to open the center. Matthias tried to bring his queen. And it feels like the whole game Nordiberk is just one tempo ahead. Here they repeat a few moves. Now the rooks infiltrate on the 7th rank. And this was a big blunder by Matthias on time pressure. The knight jumps in, the bishop is pinned, so the bishop cannot capture. Queen comes forward, but then Nordiberk sacrifices his rook for this knight. That's a key defender on the position. And this opens lines for the queen to join the attack. Matthias tries to desperate defend, but the bishop was hanging, so Nordiberk captures the bishop. Now Nordiberk has 2 knights for a rook. That's the imbalance of the position. Matthias has 5 pawns against 3 from Nordiberk, but the position is completely hopeless, because now the knight jumps forward and there's all sorts of forks here. And now Nordiberk has a knight for 2 pawns. And here the knight jumps and will capture another pawn, and also has all sorts of checkmate threats against the black king. So Matthias resigned. And the last game that Nordiberk played, he played against Arjun Erigaisi, one of the best players of India. He was the highest rated Indian player coming to this tournament, but he didn't do very well. He only scored 4.5 out of 13 points. Terrible tournament. I think he lost 30 points of rating, which is shocking. And the game went like this. They played an Italian game, which grandmasters have been playing a lot lately, because it leads to very complicated games. Arjun tried to play in a gambit style, the Evans Gambit, which is not very common in the high level. And Nordiberk punishes him, really. So far everything's okay. Remember that black is a pawn up. Not anymore. Now they have the same amount of pawns, 6 against 6. But feels like now the white attack faded away. There's that. So black starts to seize the initiative on this position. Nordiberk defending against the bishop. Since he doesn't have black's dark square bishop, he places his pawn on f6. And here he blocks the center. Now he jumps with his knight, his bishop. And now we're almost reaching a opposite color bishop endgame. But black's position is way more active than white's. Feels like white is a little bit stuck. This pawn here is blocking the bishop action, while black's targets, right? These two targets and this one as well. So they trade a pair of rooks, and here Nordiberk played his intermezzo move, targeting the rook before grabbing this pawn. Rook tries to go back, now the queen pings the rook, now brings the rook to target the pawn. As I told you, these pawns are weaknesses. And here Nordiberk gives this check. If the queen takes, then you will take the rook with check, and then you would win this bishop. So obviously Arjun guys saw this. He played king f2 to defend his rook. But Nordiberk insisted on the idea. But now, when the queen captures the rook, it's not check anymore. The king is now on f1. So play continued. This pawn is very weak. Only the queen can defend. The king tries to approach. Now Nordiberk tries to grab the pawn. And this is a critical position in this game, because you had to calculate if this end game is winning. It is winning, but black cannot waste a lot of moves on this position, otherwise white would catch up, and the opposite color bishop usually ends in a draw if both bishops are active. So with the queens on the board, the black queens keep creating problems for white. Here they trade, and Nordiberk brings the king because he has to protect against this passing pawn. Arjun tries to create some counterplay and grab the g7 pawn. Now Nordiberk simply targets the pawns on the other side as well. So in the game, this bishop is the same color as this square. So now you will see how he managed to win this game. Here it's very important on this type of position that you keep your pawns on the dark square to fight against the bishop. Trade this pawn against your doubled pawn, and you keep marching these two pawns with the help of your king. Then at some point, white will have to give up the bishop for the two pawns. Then you come to the other side, grab this pawn and push this other pawn with the help of your bishop and king and promote. And I played a few more moves, but with brilliant technique, Arjun resigned and accepted that he would lose this position in another 20 or 30 moves. So this was the performance by Nordiberk in Wijk and Zee. Very impressive. It's a shame that he's not participating in the candidates tournament. He played on a very strong field against several candidates like Ragnananda, Vincent Keimer, Matthias Brumbaum, who's been playing great, Anish Kiri, and Arjun Erigaisi. And the champion, he even won against the champion, Gukesh. So impressive performance by Nordiberk, but it's a shame that he will not be in the candidates tournament, but well, now he's a Wijk and Zee champion. Congratulations. Thanks for watching. If you liked this recap, please consider subscribing to my channel. I'll see you next time. Bye.